Good afternoon and a very warm welcome, everyone. I'm Diana Eggleston, and together with my colleague Philip Mulder, I'll be hosting today's webinar on access to EU funding with a focus on the Innovation Fund. Thank you for joining us for what I'm hoping will be an insightful session, and there will be plenty of time for you to ask questions and interact with our speaker in the second part of the program. The Hague Business Agency is a publicly funded non-profit organization, and as part of the Invest in Holland network, we support foreign companies, NGOs, and international organizations with their expansion to the Netherlands. Every day, people in The Hague work towards creating a better, safer, and more just world. The City of The Hague is delighted and proud to welcome new organizations that contribute to this mission. As the seat of Dutch government, The Hague aims to become climate neutral by 2030 and is a hub for sustainable development. Some of the services we provide at The Hague Business Agency are sharing knowledge, like in today's webinar, organizing fact-finding trips. Currently, these can be organized virtually, supporting organizations with the incorporation and settling in process, and making relevant introductions in the ecosystem. Of course, we don't do this alone. We work with a wide network of trusted service providers, partner organizations, local and national government. One of the subject matter experts we've been working with for a number of years is Simona Trpovska, EU funding consultant. Simona, we're delighted that you're with us again today. Back in January, we hosted a webinar where we provided an overview of the key funding schemes under the new multi-annual financing framework of the European Commission. You can rewatch this video in our YouTube channel. I think there will be a link later in the chat box so you can access that. Today, we deep dive into the Innovation Fund. The European Commission's aim is to cut greenhouse gases by 55% as soon as 2030. This is a necessity, but it's also an unprecedented economic opportunity in our time. Now, to finance this new growth strategy, the European Green Deal, the Commission is mobilizing an unprecedented wave of public investment, over 280 billion euros. Under the Innovation Fund, 10 billion euros are made available to facilitate the development and scaling of technologies that help reduce CO2 emissions. Now, before we kick off the program, we are curious to find out, like last time, who of our viewers has had experience with EU funding before. So we'd like to run a quick poll. If you would kindly respond, there are several options. Either you have applied before and were successful, or you haven't applied before yet, or you haven't had any experience with EU funding. So this will help us also later with the structuring of the questions. Can we have the poll, please? Great. Oh, wow. Okay. So the majority are here for general information. And yeah, over a third of you are interested in finding out how to apply and what's available. So I think you're in the right place. Today's webinar will also be recorded, so you can watch it later and also share it. And now, without further ado, I will hand over to Simona. The floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction, Diana. Hi, everyone. I'm Simona. I'm an expert in access to EU funding, and today I will tell you more about the Innovation Fund. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Innovation Fund, but the Innovation Fund is one of the largest financing programs for green technologies in Europe and worldwide. So I will also share my presentation now. So basically, the goal of the Innovation Fund is to finance low carbon technologies, and for that purpose, they will invest around 10 billion euros support by the end of 2030. The aim is to bring to the market industrial solutions that will support climate neutral Europe. That is one of the major goals of the Green Deal. And of course, one of the main goals of the fund is to contribute to a clean planet for all. So the Innovation Fund focuses on 4 major sectors: the energy intensive industries like refineries, biofuels and biorefineries, iron and steel industry, non-ferrous metals. Then we have the cement and lime industry, glass, ceramics and construction materials, pulp and paper, chemicals, hydrogen and other. Then we have the renewables, so wind energy, solar energy, hydro and ocean energy, geothermal energy, bioelectricity, renewable heating and cooling, and other areas of renewables. And then we have the energy storage, so it can be intraday electricity storage sector or other energy storage sectors. And then we have also the carbon capture, utilization, and storage. This area is very specific and some limitations apply. So the Innovation Fund likes to see project in CO2 capture and storage, but when it comes to carbon capture and utilization, it is important to know that they only accept projects that do carbon capture in one of the energy intensive industries, and all of these industries are outlined in Annex 1 of the ETS directive. I have it on my screen now, and you can also find it online. So also projects that deal with CO2 utilization are also applicable if they result in products that they are used in products which substitute carbon intensive industries. So please check eligibility if you're in this area of operations. In order to apply to the Innovation Council, to the Innovation Fund, you need to be based in EU member state, Norway and Liechtenstein. And not only that your organization needs to be based within these countries, but also the project needs to be based in these countries. So different types of entities are eligible to apply, but and you can also apply as a single entity, but it's highly recommendable that you form partnerships, especially for bigger projects, because you also need to show operational and financial capacity. So if you have partner, maybe some of your partners can balance out your weak points, and they can help you show that you can cover the co-financing rate. So basically the Innovation Fund finances 60% of the project, and then you need to match the rest of the project. They offer 2 types of calls, and they're repetitive calls. So they have multiple cut-off periods for both type of calls. There are small scale calls and large scale calls. The small scale calls are between 2.5 and 7.5 million euros, and the large scale calls are aimed more for flagship projects and are above 7.5 million euros. So you need to reach, for both type of project, you need to reach financial closure for up to 48 months, and then you have additional time where you can for operations. So 2 to 3 years for the small scale projects and 3 to 10 years for the large scale projects. So we will start now I will tell you more about the large scale projects. So the application process for the large scale process is a two-stage application process. So the first stage is an expression of interest, and the second stage is a full application. So if you pass the first stage, after 3 to 4 months period, you will be informed to submit full application, and then you will need additional 4 to 6 months to receive a reply from the Innovation Fund. And then then you can have a positive response of winning the project, or you can also, if you have a strong application, but you are still not your project is still not at the maturity level to be financed by the Innovation Fund, you will receive support for project development. And for this goal, for each financing round, there is 1 billion euros available for projects, and then additional 8 million for project development. And the Innovation Fund expects to support 20 projects for project development per application round. So this is the process. I will tell you more a little bit later about the award criteria. And in terms of documentation, you need to submit, let's say, if you pass the stage of expression of interest, then you need to submit full application that consists of administrative form, and then you have a technical description. You have a form that you will need to demonstrate measurable indicators. And then one of the most important documents in the project is an Excel sheet where you need to provide greenhouse gas emission avoidance potential. And in the full application, these calculations need to be verified by a third party. And then you also need to have prepared feasibility study for your project, a detailed business plan, and also a detailed project implementation plan. You need to also show how you will share knowledge, and you also need to provide detailed cost calculation that needs to be also approved by auditors. So you need to provide auditor statement that you're about the relevant cost. And then you also need to provide a financial model that needs to be convincing, so that the evaluators grant the project. And if you have any due diligence performed before, then it's good to add it in supporting documents. So basically, once you submit and you receive the application and the grant is awarded, you can start basic activities, and you need also to secure your part of the financing. And once you secure your part of the financing, then the Innovation Fund will provide a down payment of 40%. And then when you start with construction and entry in operation, depending on the type of the industry, you will be reimbursed on per milestone basis. The award criteria, so before winning the projects, you need to satisfy certain award criteria. One of the most important aspects is the greenhouse gas emission avoidance potential. And there are two measures that you need to calculate here. One is the absolute greenhouse gas emission avoidance. That is the difference between the expected greenhouse gas emissions of the project, and the greenhouse gas emissions in the reference scenario during 10 years after the entry in operations of your project. And the relative greenhouse gas emission avoidance is calculated when the absolute greenhouse gas emission avoidance of the project is divided by the greenhouse gas emission in the reference scenario. What is the reference scenario? I will tell you in a moment. So basically, for each type of industries, there are different reference scenarios that need to be used and different benchmarks. So for example, for the energy intensive industry, you need to use the ETS benchmark. And for the renewable electricity, you need to use expected 2030 electricity mix for renewable heat, natural gas boiler for renewable fuels, fossil fuels comparators from RED 2, and for energy storage, single cycle turbine peaking power. Before we move on to the next evaluation criteria, I want to mention here that it's very important that you do precise calculations, because if you do small errors, they can be corrected and your application can move forward. But if you have substantial errors in this area, then your whole application will be dismissed and will not be evaluated further. So please make sure that the calculations are very precise for the greenhouse gas emission avoidance potential. And once you're done with that, you also need to make sure that you satisfy the second criteria, which is the level of innovation. To pass this criteria, you need to score minimum 3 out of 5 points. And the rule is that your project needs to go beyond the state-of-art technologies. So it needs to be, for example, first of a kind commercialization or commercial size demonstration of an already proven pilot or demonstration plants, or and the project also needs to go beyond incremental innovation. What does that mean? So if you have an existing project and you only do small improvements, then you will probably be graded with a grade below 3 points, which is not sufficient to pass the criteria. So you need to offer something that that is a breakthrough concept to be able to pass the innovation criteria. So I mean, what they want to see as topics is probably an example would be low carbon options to substitute carbon intensive materials, or also materials that can store CO2 emissions. So you need to have a breakthrough concept in your own industry. And once you satisfy these criteria, you need to go. You need to also address the project maturity. And by project maturity, I mean the implementation maturity and the financial maturity. So to prove that you have implementation maturity, you need to show that your solution is technically feasible, that you have a credible plan for implementation, and an experienced project team. If you require permits, you either need to acquire them prior to the project or to already be in procedure. So, and in some situations where possible, also some contracts with customers or for launching can also be a plus. And in terms of the financial maturity, so you need to, your project needs to be bankable. So when you prepare the financial model, ask yourself whether a bank would finance my solution, and then you will get the answer in relation to the project maturity. So here the criteria is that you need to have a minimum 3 out of 5 points in each of the sub-criteria. But let's say if all other criteria are met by the project and you have lower project maturity that is still above 50% of the total grade, you can be awarded support in project development that will help you reach the stage where the innovation fund will further finance you. There is also that option if you're not at the level of project maturity as accepted by the innovation fund. And then you also need to consider the scalability of your solution. And in this section, you will be evaluated on the basis of project and regional level scalability. And that means whether your project can expand to other sites or possibly transfer to other sites, or you can, whether you can cooperate with other actors and contribute to the economy, and how your project contributes to knowledge sharing, communication, and dissemination. And then you will also be evaluated on the basis of sector level, and that is the extent to which the technology contributes to the sector, and whether it contributes to any cost reduction, resource savings, and greenhouse gas emissions avoidance. And the last but not the least is the economy-wide scalability, and that shows the extent to which the technology can be applied across the economy and will create new value chains or reinforce existing ones. And the last but not the least is the cost efficiency, and that is basically the requested support per ton of CO2. How is it calculated? They have a special formula to calculate cost efficiency, and it's basically calculated on the when you divide the relevant costs in the project minus your contribution over the absolute greenhouse gas emission avoidance. And if you successfully pass all of these criteria, you will probably be among the shortlisted applicants to win the project. If you're not, you can revisit, you will get feedback and you can revisit the project. But if you score very low on the degree of innovation, I wouldn't recommend trying again with the same solution to the same opportunity. The small scale projects, what is different between the small scale and the large scale projects? So the small scale projects are between 2.5 and 7.5 million euros. The eligible activities are the same, and but there is difference in the application process. The small scale project is a single stage, and it has a simpler application process. The selection criteria is the same with some small simplifications. The grant amount is 60% of the total cost, so you still need to match 40%. And the grant disbursement is also the same. And in the small scale projects, they also allow you for project development assistance if your project does not pass the maturity criteria, but all other criteria are strong. So, and in the small scale projects, they also award up to 20 project development assistance awards. So yes, so the submission, between submission and response, you need to wait 5 to 6 months for the small scale calls, and the process is simplified. So, but it's very similar to the large scale projects. Only the entry into operation is expected to be up to 3 years. So everything else is almost the same. The available amount of financing per cutoff period is 100 million euros. Examples that can be interesting to consider for the small scale projects are direct air capture technologies. So you can think whether your industry can contribute in this sector. Or another option that can be considered is negative emission technologies that offset greenhouse gas emissions. And a third option, if you are an organization that currently has a client and wants to demonstrate a novel solution with the client, then you can apply together with your client to demonstrate your new technology. So you can be creative. Also, geological storage is a very attractive topic in this area. So if you want, you can also, if you have any thoughts or ideas, you can share it with us, so we can give you an overview and share our thoughts. And then if you don't belong within the innovation fund, so if you're not yet there, you can, if you are still in earlier phase and you need to do research rather than demonstration, then you can apply under the upcoming Horizon Europe calls. And then when you are ready, you can apply to the Innovation Fund. And then and then for the scale up part, you can apply to Invest EU or CEF. And then, so now we will go to the Q&A session, because I suppose you have many questions that me and Philip will answer. And later I will tell you more about what is available for financing at the moment. Philip, I hand it to you now.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. We indeed received quite a few questions during the webinar, but also beforehand. So let's start with that. And well, the first start is about success. Everybody wants to be successful, obviously. So what is the actual success rate for the application so far? Can you tell something about that?
Yeah, so the success rate, well, for each of the stages, there is only one cycle passed until now. So okay. We can say that it's more or less 10%, but I don't want that this number discourages applicants, because of course they give good amount of financing, and of course then we also don't know the success rate in the next cycles. So I wouldn't be discouraged by this fact at the moment.
Okay, clear. But do you have any tips and tricks to increase the success rate for the next calls? And are there any critical success factors?
Yes, well, one of the most critical success factors is to start with early preparation, because this is, so the application process is a really straightforward process, but it's quite also time consuming, and it requires lots of documentation. The application is long, and then also there are also supporting documents that you need to submit. So if you start early enough, then you can make sure that all gaps are and weak spots are covered, and also you can also make sure that if you have a bigger weak spot, then you can find a relevant partner who can balance out the weak spot.
Yeah, take your time, prepare well, find partners, etc. Yeah, and another question. Actually, I do have a question in the chat box, and that's also about previous funding. Are there any companies that have already received funding from this fund? In the first
everything
round?
Is still in process, so it's not completely finalized. Yes, okay, because the first round, so there was the first stage for the big scale, and now it's the second stage, so it's not a complete process. And for the small scale projects, there are also the applications are in process of evaluation. Okay. So well, we can give this kind of information a bit at a later stage.
Okay, that is to be seen. Clear. All right, another question. Okay, some of the examples of the technologies or the innovation that you discussed have a very direct relation to the main activities. That's energy generation, storage, etc. But how does it work with indirect technology and innovation? We've received questions from IT companies who support software for these value chains. A company that delivers technology, monitors and analyzes reports on CO2 emissions. I can imagine that there's piping, electrolyzers, etc. How does it work?
So if you indirectly contribute, I wouldn't apply as a lead applicant, of course, but I would consider entering in a consortium with an organization that can actually show greenhouse gas emission avoidance potential, and then this kind of organization can be a good match also to cover several weak points or to measure the greenhouse gas avoidance potential, or in whichever field they are. Depends whether they're on the supplier side or as a partner. Or so I will definitely encourage them to apply as a partner.
Yeah, so it needs to be quantifiable, and if you find a partner who can actually show these savings, they need to be the lead partner.
Yes, they need to be the lead partner, and the partner that indirectly contributes will be the supporting partner, basically.
Okay, thank you. And how does it work with hybrid projects? That some of them work on both energy efficiency and carbon capture, for instance. So which reference do you take to calculate these projects? How do you calculate the greenhouse emissions?
So hybrid projects are applicable to apply, and you can apply with both sectors, but to correctly calculate greenhouse gas emission avoidance potential, you need to divide the project in phases. So you need to take the reference measure, for example, for the energy part, you need to take different reference measure, and for the carbon capture you need to take the reference measure relevant for carbon capture. So you need to make sure, so you calculate correctly, you need to divide the project and what is done when, so that you can exactly know how to measure it and quantify it.
Okay, thank you. Well, in the meantime, in the previous question, we talked about finding possible partners, but where can you find consortium partners? Do you have any suggestions for that, Simona?
Yes, so first I would look in the internal circles, because especially bigger projects and flagship projects, they cannot be done alone. So I would look the closer surrounding. Then I would also look through contacts, and then there are also online sites where you can also look for partners or organizations that support to support you in finding relevant partners to apply. But I guess in especially for the bigger projects, most of the companies already have in mind that they need to provide to show that they have partners to implement the project, because it's almost impossible to implement it alone.
Yeah, and yeah, I see. Yeah. And another question: which part of the hydrogen value chain can be included in the application for the innovation fund?
For the hydrogen, you can only include part that shows that you can quantify and show that you have greenhouse gas emission avoidance potential. And even if that substitutes certain certain emissions, you need to clearly calculate the substitution, basically.
Yeah, but it always needs to be quantifiable. That's the most important
yes, in this fund,
right?
especially, everything needs to be quantifiable. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I received a question about what role does the North Sea play? Well, I guess that's a little bit of a wider question than the Innovation Fund on its own. Yeah, in terms of the energy transition, I think the North Sea will play a pivotal role. Of course, there's energy being generated by wind energy already, much more to be built in the future, maybe some floating solar upcoming, and hopefully carbon capture and storage. I believe that the depleted gas fields will be used to store carbon in the Netherlands. There's two big projects, Athos and Porthos, who are being prepared to be injected in a couple of years, hopefully. And this innovation fund can definitely be a solution for companies working on those solutions. Another question we received: what opportunities does the EU funding for peace building through cultural heritage and education funding opportunities? Well, that's a little bit off topic because now we're talking about clean technology, but of course we can help you with that as well. We can directly connect you to our EU funding consultant, but if you wish to explore this, please send us a one-pager explaining your proposition, progress, and funding, and the countries you work in, so we can assess it and we can prepare a meeting for you. Another question: startups. Yeah, how can they be helped to obtain funding, Simona? Is it possible at all for a startup to enter these big programs?
Yes, so as a startup, similarly to the organizations that indirectly can contribute to the industry, I would partner with a bigger company, or if they are more advanced, they can first consider maybe other options that are more relevant as a single applicant for them, and then also join a consortium, or at one point if they decide to apply alone. But my recommendation is that for the Innovation Fund, they go in a consortium with another industry partner, basically.
Yeah, okay, clear. Another question: innovative waste energy, waste to energy, of course. Is that eligible for funding as well, Simona?
Yes, solutions from waste, especially building materials made from waste, can be very interesting idea that can be submitted to the Innovation Council. So depending on the type of yes, generally waste is a good concept for the Innovation Fund, but I need to also know more details to give a final answer, basically. So the person interested in this can contact us, and we can have a more detailed discussion on the topic.
Okay. Well, in that case, please get in touch, and we'll get onto it. Some more questions in the chat box. Do private equity funds that invest in CO2 emissions reduction technology, do those companies qualify for getting funding from the Innovation Fund?
Not directly, but they can, for example, match. So if they have an interesting client with innovative technology, they can cooperate to match the financing of the Innovation Fund, because, for example, the consortia needs to provide 40% co-financing rate. So maybe as a partner to the applying party, they can in a way be part of the bigger project.
Yeah, as part of a consortium. Yeah, clear. And another question: do mining technology companies that reduce carbon footprint in mining projects, do they qualify as? Do they qualify if the mining projects are in the European Union?
As well, if minerals are also, this is one of the industries that is very also high pollutant. So also depending on the concept and on the innovation available, they can be considered. But of course, if we know more details, we can answer better and we can directly tell you more about the chances of winning.
Yeah, I think they hear they say can companies that have the technology to recover minerals from waste dumps qualify?
Can you repeat, sorry?
So here's a company that that has technology to recover minerals from waste dumps.
Yes, that can be interesting topic.
Yeah, and in that case, yeah. All right. Well, to whom that asked that question, please get in touch with us, and we'd love to get into the details with you. Another question: can you do a quick scan for a company to assess what kind of funding to apply?
Yes, of course, but we need more information of where you are with your technology. What do you want what do you need financing for? And basic information about the company, so we can assess what is the most relevant financing opportunity for you. So if you get in touch with us, we can tell you more.
Okay, thank you. Another question: possible funding and collaboration of African entrepreneurs with those EU countries. Well, this innovation fund is only available to entities within the European Union, Norway, and Liechtenstein. So if you partner, if you need an entity within those regions. So even if you're an African company, you need to set up an entity first in one of those regions before you can apply for this funding. This funding. That's probably not feasible in the very near future, but on the longer term, that is possible. And of course, we can help you with that if you have some interesting technology. So if that's the case, let us know and get in touch with us. And yeah, this is an interesting question, because we have a question from somebody who wants they want to build a beach stadium in the first beach stadium in the world with zero emission, and they would like to know if there can be a refund. And I think there's more one-off projects that are looking for funding as well. Is that possible with the Innovation Fund, Simona?
Well, unfortunately, this project will not be eligible for the Innovation Fund, because I also don't see the scalability here or how it will be transferred. So it's basically a stadium. It's not a new technology. The Innovation Fund is more for the demonstration of demonstration and then commercialization of innovative technologies. And so it wouldn't be applicable, but maybe other funds, local or European, can be applicable.
Yeah, well, in this case, maybe we can try to help you find some regional funding, because I can imagine that is more feasible in this case than the Innovation Fund. I think you explained a little bit about this already, but the maturity of the projects, how mature are the projects to refer to, and how well is maturity defined? Is that arbitrary, or is it fair?
Well, when we speak of maturity, it is sort of well defined, because you need to also present feasibility study. So where your project is, and then also the details that you show in the implementation planning, the experience of the project team, and also these details, if you have working permits or for permits for building, if it's a construction of renewables, let's say, then, and all these small details show the maturity of the project. And then, of course, the financial maturity, it's a sound financial model in the specific industry. So it needs to be, that's a bit defined by the industry of the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Another question, are the grants company or technology based? So can a company run simultaneous applications?
Yeah, no, because if the company's lead applicant in one project, they need to complete the whole application process before they are able to apply with different solutions. So they can definitely apply and try with multiple solutions, but they cannot apply with all solutions at the same time. Of course, okay. They can, if you have two projects that you want to get financing for, I would send one project to the Innovation Fund, and maybe for the other, I will look for another financing opportunity within the EU framework, because that's totally allowed.
Okay. I have one more question that's actually quite obvious, but maybe not. How do I actually, oh no, there's some more questions actually. But how do companies actually access the funding?
Well, the companies will first need to check eligibility criteria, which are published online. So you can check the website of the Innovation Fund, and then you can also check the funding and tenders portal, where you have the specifics for each goal. And then if you satisfy, you can also get in touch with a consultant if you're not sure whether you're you satisfy all the criteria, or whether this fund is applicable for you. And then you, as I mentioned before, the key to success for the Innovation Fund is to start with early preparation. So you need to create a working list and tick all boxes. And if you do a good project work, you can do it alone. If not, you can also engage in cooperation with some consultants to help you, because the process is quite time consuming and requires a lot of effort. But then if you already go for it, you need a structure, good organization, so that you can successfully apply, let's say.
But and you mentioned a consultant. Well, you are a consultant, so you may be biased a little bit. But in which cases will companies use a consultant? Is there any specific situation where you say, "Oh, now you should use a consultant"?
Yes, well, a consultant is a good add-on to the project because you always need someone, a third person, to look at the project and tell you the facts, because of course we all love our projects, so then we become biased and maybe we don't see some weak spots. So I even have cases where my clients are good writers, let's say, or they've done project work before, but then we establish cooperation because they say, okay, I need someone to look at my weak spots, so we need to join forces. And of course, for someone that does project work for the first time, I would recommend, especially for the Innovation Fund, not to go alone, because it's quite a long process, and it's also requires a lot of supporting documents, a lot of information. The application is lengthy, and they request that you provide to the point written application without repetitions, and that is concise, that everyone, because they also rotate the evaluators, so everyone should be able to read it and understand it, because they don't have much time. So I would suggest that you hire a consultant. On the other hand, if you're very experienced in project work, then you can also try on your own and see how the application goes.
Okay, but if they need a consultant, they can always get in touch with you, I assume.
Yes, of course.
Of course, yeah. I see another question coming in. What are the funding limitations, the amount? I think for the small calls, there was 7.5 billion and then 60% of the capital expenditure. But how about for the large calls, Simona?
So there is no upper limit per se. It starts from 7.5 million, but of course it should be well justified. The amount that you choose to apply for needs to be well justified, because you also need to provide a statement from auditor that these are the realistic costs, and that's why like it depends. Of course, some industries are more capital intensive, some industries are less capital intensive. So I would structure the amount of funding for the large scale projects as per the industry. So what is realistic and in this particular industry.
Yeah, it has to be reasonable within the context of the project.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, any more questions? I don't think so. So that's for the Q&A of the Innovation Fund, but I think there was 2 other funds you want to discuss a little bit as well, Simona. That's the
Philip.
Yeah, please do. I think it's one is from the Innovation Council, right?
Yes. Basically, there are 2 funds available under the Innovation Council. So one of them is, if you are at earlier stages, which I mentioned before, and you need to do research prior to doing demonstration, the Innovation Council launched a new set of calls under the new Horizon Europe program. And that is also related to innovative projects. It's called the Eic Pathfinder, and they give up to 3 million euros of financing for research purposes or technological readiness level 1 to 4. So also proof of concept creation, and there the rule is that you need to apply. You need to partner with another 2 entities, and in total you need to have at least 3 entities from 3 different Horizon Europe countries, and that's and when I speak Horizon Europe countries, that's the European Union, and then there are some additional countries like the UK, the Balkan countries, Israel, Turkey, and a few others that can apply: Switzerland, Norway, Liechtenstein. Yes, so this is the one call. The deadline for this is the 19th of May. They will be opened for submission starting tomorrow, actually. And so if any of the applicants is interested for research project or for earlier stages project, then this is the right option for you. And then under the Innovation Council, there are actually not 1, but 2 more projects that can be considered, but they are sort of similar project. One is for general innovations, and they provide up to 2.5 million euros of grant financing and up to 15 million euros of equity financing for commercialization and scale up. Then it's very close to the energy industry, because one call is related to the Green Deal, and it's only available for organizations that that are in line with the Green Deal. And but to apply to this fund, you need to be either a small and medium-sized enterprise or a mid-cap. So if any of the SMEs are interested and have innovative technologies and are at technological readiness level 5 or 6, then this is the option to apply. This is a 2-stage application process. So the first stage, you submit a small application and you can apply at any time. And for the second stage, there are 2 deadlines. One is the 9th of June, and the second one is the 6th of October. So if you if you're able to reach the first to apply to the first deadline, then if something goes wrong, you can always resubmit to the second deadline in October, because these programs are also with multiple cutoff periods and they're not one-time calls. And yes, so one is directed to focused on the Green Deal, and the other call is with the same rules for application, but it is available for all innovations from any industry, basically.
Thank you very much, Simona. Well, before we go back to Diana, I think there's one more question actually two questions that came in. So I would like to take the time to answer those as well. This one is about the Innovation Fund again. How is the absolute greenhouse gas emission avoidance calculated, Simona?
Yes, so the absolute greenhouse gas emission avoidance is calculated based on the difference between the expected greenhouse gas emission of the project and the greenhouse gas emission in the reference scenario that during a 10-year period after entry in operation. And I gave the example with the reference scenario in one of the slides. This topic on how to calculate the greenhouse gas emission avoidance, it's also a bit also more complex topic. So if anyone was not clear, we can discuss it in a private call, because it's quite also there's a process on how to calculate it. I just told you the basics here, but of course there are more detailed guidelines on how to do that.
Okay, well, in this case, let's get in touch for your specific case. One more question: is there also a digital fund? So that doesn't apply to the Innovation Fund necessarily, I guess.
Yes, so basically under the Innovation Council, besides besides the general topic and also the challenge about the Green Deal, the EIC Accelerator published a call for the digital and health sector that is directed for innovations in that area. The same rules apply, so the deadlines for the second stage are 9th of June and 6th of October. And then also we wait for the new Digital Europe program to come, but the calls are not yet announced, but I expect them to start announcing calls soon.
Okay. Thank you very much, Simona. I hope your questions were answered with this. Yeah, and somebody is asking for the two other funds, if they have a special name. So those were the funds that you discussed, Afrin.
Yes, and we should also mention, Philip, that there is also a prize competition that is also close to the energy sector. So it's fuel from the sun and artificial photosynthesis, and okay, it's open to all legal entities to apply. So it's sort of a prize competition, and the entity that wins the financing, or the group of entities, will get 5 million euros, and the call is open until 5th of May.
Okay, well, nice to know about that as well. But going back to the question, because I think you just discussed two additional funds from the Innovation Council. What are the names of those specific funds? Do they have a specific name?
Yeah, so basically the one for research is Eic Pathfinder.
Okay.
And the one for the one that is for the innovations at the later stage, so for technological readiness level 5 and 6. Yep. Then we have the EIC Accelerator Open. This is for the general, for the general innovations. Then we have the EIC Accelerator Challenges, and under the challenges we have two calls. One is for the Green Deal sector, and the other one is for the digital and health sector. But if you go to the funding and tender portal, you will find them as a separate call. They are not under one call. And there, if you open now, you will find them as forthcoming, because they are open. They're only announced now, but they will be opened for submission starting tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's a lot of names of all these funds. We will definitely mention those in the follow-up mail that we'll send to you, so you don't have to learn everything by heart. If you miss something out, don't worry about it. We'll get back to you. Yeah, I guess that's it. Well, I guess it's back to you, Diana. Are you still here?
I'm still here, and I've been listening with great attention, Simona. Thank you so much for this really in-depth insight, as always. I mean, we're used to this by now, but it was really fascinating. And I also really enjoyed that you were sharing some hot off the press additional opportunities from the Innovation Council. So as Philip just said, we will share the relevant links in a follow-up email. I want to thank everybody for joining our webinar again today. Please stay tuned, because we will be hosting further webinars throughout the year on different EU funding schemes. Do get in touch with Philip if you want to explore setting up a presence in The Hague or connecting to our ecosystem. And of course, contact Simona if you want to have more insights into the Innovation Fund or any other EU funding schemes. We're just running a quick follow-up poll. You know, we will respect your wishes in terms of who you want to proactively contact you. And I think this is it. Have I missed anything? Just a big thank you to our great speaker, Simona, also the team behind the scenes, the people that we don't see who always do such a great job setting up this webinar. So thank you to the team behind the screen, and look forward to being in touch and seeing everybody at the next webinar. Thank you.
Have a nice day, everybody. Bye-bye.